Good evening. Welcome to Confessions. I'm your host of the light, Jenny Watson. I'm a personal empowerment reader, new moon astrologer, and past life reader. And my mission is to help people provide a safe space to step into their darkness to shine their brightest of their lights. And that's what this show is all about. So tonight we'll be talking about people who change our lives. There's a quote out there that I like that is along the lines of people come into our lives and they leave footprints on our hearts and we will never see them again. These people are unexpected angels, and actually, they're not necessarily all that close to us. True, there are real-life role models and relationships that have profound lessons, but then there are those that have a tremendous impact on our lives, and they change us for the better, and they inspire us. So joining me tonight to talk about this is an amazing man. Paul Amirault is a TV producer, writer, and energy healer. And with over 2 decades of experience, his life is all about the story. A charming cowboy with a heart of gold. It is an honor to have him on the show tonight. So welcome to Confessions, Paul. Are you ready to bare your soul?
With an introduction like that, I have no choice. Thank you.
You're welcome. So it's been a couple of years since I've seen you. How have you been?
I've been great. Working. It's always a balance, trying to find the time for friends, meditation, work, so we get caught up in it sometimes. So I think I'm caught up in it, but hopefully we'll be coming up soon.
Absolutely. Well, Libra, it's a time of balance, right?
Yep. It's a good time.
So I got to ask you about the hat, your signature hat.
Yeah.
Were you born living in the South where you grew up with the cowboys and the hats, or is this just something that's part of your natural personality?
No. I think it's part of my personality. It's something that I've always really liked, and when I was a couple things, my aunt and uncle lived in Colorado. I grew up in Massachusetts, so it's kind of rather inauthentic to dress like a cowboy. But my aunt and uncle had me come out to Colorado a few summers, and I really liked that. And when I was in college, I was a ranger at Yellowstone, so I really went to my first rodeo and really got to see Wyoming and Montana cowboys, and it just appealed to me. And I think I don't know, when I was 40, I was like, you know what, why not? So I started with the boots and then ended with the hat and the buckle.
I think it's hysterical that it said it was inauthentic of you, when I think it's completely authentic of you, and I think just where you grew up was not resonating with who you were. So I think it's great that you embrace that, and I think you're adorable, and I just wanted to set that out. So I want to hear more about you and get to know you better. By trade, you're a television producer. So how did that passion start in your life? Where did that come from?
Gosh, when I guess for confession purposes, I always loved to read. I always loved movies and stories. And I think when I was about 7, we all sort of have rivals, the other kid in the class that we were sort of in the same intelligence level. We were always competing for grades and stuff. And I discovered that he had made this animated movie, and he had won this prestigious Boston Globe Film Festival award. And I saw it, and it was it made South Park look good. And, so it was really lame, and I thought, I could do so much better than that. So I begged my, dad to let me have his 8mm camera, and I just started making crazy movies. And, and they were all rip-offs. I'm kind of notorious in my neighborhood because I did a spoof about a killer toilet that I called Flush with an exclamation point. And I still have people bugging me like, where is it? And I'm like, well, I stole the Jaws music, so, it's not something I could put on YouTube. And for other reasons, it probably should remain off of YouTube. But so from 8 years on, I started loving movies, and I went to film school. But sort of the practical part of me wanted to learn about TV, because even then I knew, hey, they make, 100 movies a year? They make thousands of hours of television a year. So I sort of did a backup in TV production. And then, as expected, kind of, when I moved to LA, that's where my friends were working, and that's, I just sort of lucked right into some work, You look back and you go, wow, yeah. But I was lucky, I didn't have to really scrape when I first got to town. I was a PA for exactly 3 days, and some people spend years being a production assistant. But I will say this. I ended up working on a pilot, my very first thing. It was for a really bad sitcom, and it was sort of a hybrid sitcom / well, I don't want to say really bad, actually. There was a lot of cool things about it, but it was a mix of a variety show and a sitcom, kind of probably ahead of its time. And I went ahead and like wrote an episode, like a second episode, for it. And I got to, because my friends worked on it, got to show it to the producer. And he said, well, clearly you can write, and he hired me to be the associate producer on his show. So even though it was like a medical show and it had nothing to do with this, still it got me in the door, and I didn't have to, run around and get coffee and sodas for ever, So.
That's fantastic. So what are some of your most favorite shows that you produced, and why?
Well, you know what? I mean, it's always, first of all, in TV, it's always a team. It's never really, you're part of the team, and sometimes, a lot of the time in my career, my role in the team was making sure there was content for the shows, making sure there was stories. I was the director of research, and even when I got producer titles and better titles, it really was me coming, me and a team of people trying to find the best stories for the show, So I kind of, just because I love to tell stories, that's really, I did that and I loved it. My favorite experiences are just so varied, like I worked on the Joan London Behind Closed Doors show, and that was a wonderful experience. I mean, that was probably the best overall fun I've ever had, because you don't get to go see the Secret Service. You don't get to sit in the White House in the room where they monitor the water and the air, and you don't get to see Richard Branson's private island. But I did on Joan London, and we stayed at the best hotels. TV was different then. We flew first class. So, I met Celine Dion and her husband, and they're just the loveliest people. So, that was fun. My favorite overall experience probably was the makeover show that I did for HGTV, just because, in the end, you're kind of having fun and running it, and that was awesome. We did 144 episodes. It was this crazy show. And we were making a difference in people's lives. We never got sued. We did good work, and it was a big challenge, but we had fun doing it. Lately I have been, sort of supervising producer, which is that I'm not show running, but I'm working with a really amazing showrunner, and she has taught me a million things, and it's more in that documentary range.
Right.
So it's kind of like, people think Hollywood is like one thing, and it's actually 50 things. And if you're good at one thing, it doesn't at all allow you to just be good at the other 49. So you really almost have to start again every time. But you know what? It's fun. It's rewarding.
I think that's the beauty of any job, is to me that there's different elements, that different skills and talents that you can bring to the table, whether it's natural or it's a bit of a challenge to learn. So I think that's fascinating in your world that you get to experience that. So what show are you working on currently?
Well, the truth is that I'm not sure that it's been announced from the network yet. So I have to be really clear. Yeah, I can say this, that it is a crime show for Discovery ID. It's something that's supposed to air in the fourth quarter of this year. So before the end of the year, it should be running. And I think it's probably safe to say that it's more of a cold case files type of show, but very stylish. And it's I think it's going to be a great show. It's a lot of work, but it's you see it on the screen. So.
Fascinating. And among all your talents, you are also a writer, and you're in the middle of writing a book, The Man Who Sent the SOS. Tell us a little bit about that and how that inspiration came about.
That's, kind of long time in coming. And it's funny because I had to move some stuff around this morning to set up for the interview. So I have this massive model that I may want to show you.
Ooh. Sneak peek, huh?
I think you can kind of see this.
Check that out! Hi, Titanic!
Yes. So, it relates to that. I think, looking back, because, I'm going to share later, I think, another story that really, really transformed me. But I can say this about this, that all of my life, so from the second grade on, when a teacher read A Night to Remember, which is kind of the classic story about the Titanic and its life, and it's sort of a very short tenure. I have been absolutely captured by the story. And as I grew older, I realized that it was captured more than, just like, oh, I'm a Harry Potter geek. Or
Right.
I love the Lord of the Rings, as
Mhm.
you probably see. It's not that at all. It was more like this obsession where I couldn't stop thinking about it. It haunted me, and it brought up feelings and memories that I didn't, know. Anyway, so years later, in doing the TV work that I've been doing, I got a past life regression, and I saw in very, very vivid detail the sinking of the Titanic in a way that has never been depicted in a movie or TV show, and it really oohed me out, and I just was like, holy crap. So I kind of was left with the idea that I somehow was accessing these memories, whether that was a past life or whether I was simply a secret psychic and was somehow tapping into that
Mhm.
event. And so it led me on a search to try to, there are only so many people who were on the ship. There were only so many people, although way too many, that went down on it. And I was able to kind of, through process of elimination, figure out the person whose life I resonated with completely. And then once I did that, I went to his hometown in England. I had complete deja vu, and I
Wow.
started. Yeah, I mean, it was like really creepy. I knew this place. I knew where he lived. I knew everything. I mean, I just knew, and it was weird. And so then I just started doing actual regressions, trying to dig out more of the story. And I spent maybe almost a year of my life back in '03, really just taking the time, or '04, taking the time to just get it out of my head, process how I felt about this. And as I would do these regressions, what was really cool was they made me feel better. Like, it was so weird seeing this terrible story about this poor guy and his life and all the regrets that he had and all the angst. Just exposing it and seeing it just kind of made me go, oh, okay. And it was really after that experience. I mean, I got 3/4 of the way through the book at the time, and I just felt way better. And I was at the point where I was actually writing about the journey of Titanic, and I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to. I've seen it. I know it. I get it. I'm done with this. So I put it away for 10 years, 7, 8 years, and a buddy of mine, convinced me to share what I had written, and he's just like, you can't leave it there. You gotta finish. So I finished it. And right now I'm trying to, you put it aside for 6 months and you look at it again and you go, oh, I need to fix this and change. So I think maybe a book is never done, and you have to get to the place where you're happy to have it go out and you don't want to think of it again. So I have a couple chapters left to revise, and I had hoped to get it out in November, but it's looking more like a first quarter 15 thing. So I'm going to self-publish it. I figure that I just, I'd like to have it be my story, and I'd like it not to be meddled with. So I'm just going to put it out there and see what happens.
I am completely fascinated by that. I'm going to be one of the first people to get it because I totally love stories like that, and I feel connected to Titanic too. Not as profoundly as that, but maybe I should do a past life regression and see that.
Yeah,
So
no.
I love that you just connected so deeply to that and written a story, and I think your friend is right in convincing you to share it, because I think it's stories like that people love to read and have
Mhm.
an understanding with. Not, I don't think, for like drama purposes, but to just like a historical overview, whether it's
Yeah.
true or not. I think people like to connect that kind of emotion.
Right, right. And I can say this, the one thing that I will say about it is that at a certain point, like writing is in some ways is like channeling, and I'm
Mhm.
just writing what I see, and so many times, like every time, and that's because I'm a skeptical person. Believe it or not, I'm at least, if not skeptical, analytical. And so
Mhm.
I would write something, and I go, oh, wait a minute, oh, that's so easy to check. So I would go online and go, oh my God, wow, oh, okay, that did happen in this time. Or in the case of one of the passengers, oh my God, there was a person that age, by that name on the ship. And that's nothing that So for me, I'm like, I am absolutely tuning into this guy's life. The open question is, does it mean that it was my higher self's past that I'm being accessing, or am I just sort of somehow crossing the ether and getting into this guy's head? And I don't know what that. In the end, I think that's the ultimate question, because I don't think we'll ever be able to prove, no matter how truthful my story turns out to be, assuming that it does. I don't know how, what other answer there is,
Either way, it's fascinating. So I think you set it up for a good point in our show, where I'm going to take this a little earlier to have you do your confession, because your story is about, and it's inspirational about how you broke through to kind of believe in spirituality and mediumship and, this higher self kind of purpose. So I would love for you to share your story with us.
Absolutely. All right. So, yes, the story is of a woman that I worked with a long time ago when I had just gotten out of film school and was living in Boston, and with all the dreams of being a screenwriter, and every night I was coming home and, working on my, I don't even think there were computers back then. I mean, there weren't. Yeah, I was like handwriting and typing up scripts and whatnot. And it was in the summer of '85. And I wanted to work in Boston. I finally, I had a job full-time at this restaurant, so I moved to Boston. Anyway, at this restaurant, there was this awesome woman named Sarah. She was the very first person I met, I think, when I came into my interview. She was the type who always had a smile for everybody. I never saw her take on stress. She would laugh it off. If you work as a restaurant, you kind of know that people come in and I want this and I want this, and they're rude. And she would just be like, yeah, whatever. And she had this sort of innateness. Everyone was drawn to her. She worked harder than anyone I knew. I never really found out about her family, whether she came from money or not, but she was moonlighting. I worked a full-time job alongside her, and then she would go and work another full-time job at night. I don't know how she did it. So anyway, what happened was, is that one day I came to work and discovered that she'd been killed, that she had been on a date and was scuba diving with this new boyfriend, someone she just started dating. And what we found out later was she had had a seizure underwater, and had never, was being trained by a boyfriend. Like, the boyfriend did all kinds of wrong, but it was at the time. I think that you're young, you don't really think about those things. She had some type of seizure underwater, coughed out her mouthpiece and drowned. And, you have to understand, when we came in and it was like Sarah's dead, it was like, you were in a daze for 2-3 days. This was like the first person that I knew that wasn't an older relative that had died, or a family member or family friend's parents. This was someone that I knew as just an ordinary person like me, and it was just devastating. And I remember it was like we were going along, and we went through the whole thing. There was never a wake. It was just a memorial service, and there was just this unreality, like she could be gone. And I should say this, that I was particularly torn up by it, because the night before she died, she had come to me. I had just finished a shift. I was tired, and she came to me and asked me if I would cover her shift that night. She said, I have a date, and I'm going out of town and tomorrow, and I'm really kind of tired, and if you'd work for me, and she was like there pleading me with her blue eyes and her smile and her blonde hair, and I was just like, Sarah, I'm tired. I can't do it. I got to write. I'm working on the script. See, they all knew me as this sort of film producer, film writer, and training, And so I was going to do a big, important thing. So she kind of was like, said, fine, and she left, and I went home, and of course I didn't write. I just sort of vegged out and watched TV. So when I heard that, I was like, if you had just worked for her, would this have happened? It's like, and you knew, and for me it was rough, because it's like, I knew that I had lied. I knew that I had told her that I had to, because I just didn't want her. But I really didn't work on the script, and I knew it. So I was racked with this horrible guilt forever and ever about it. It was one of those things where, if I thought of it and thought of her, I'd be like, and it weighed on me. And, it's like not something you think about every day, but it's like a shitty thing that you did. So I carried that with me for many years, and then bizarrely and improbably, one day, this was probably 10 years later, it was in the early 02, 03, I get a call from my very, very practical sister, Laura, and she said, you're not going to believe this, but I'm a medium. And I was like, a medium? I was like talking to dead people and everything. And she's like, yeah. And now, before I even tell that story briefly, I have to tell you that Laura is the most practical person, double major at Boston College in business, so successful right out of the gate. She was the gold standard in the family. And one of my favorite pre-medium stories of Laura has to do with my niece, Stephanie, who came. We went to see the E.T. ride at Universal, and Stephanie was so enchanted, and at the very end, E.T. is waving goodbye to everyone, and he's like, goodbye, Laura, Paul, Stephanie. And Stephanie's my niece. And my niece was just beside herself. And my sister Laura goes, Stephanie, and she gets off the ride, and Stephanie runs up to her mother and goes, E.T. knows my name. And Laura goes, now, Stephanie, was there any point that you gave your name to anyone on that ride? And Stephanie thought about it and remembered that at the beginning of the ride, they asked for your name so that you can get the passport to E.T.'s planet. And I just saw the joy just die on my niece's face. And I said to Laura, I said, you're like that woman in Miracle on 34th Street. Why would you do that? And she said, I don't want her to grow up believing in fairy tales. I want her to use her mind. So this is the person who, 5, 8 years later calls me and says she's a medium, right? So anyway, long and the short of it, it isn't about her story, but she was reading a book. She started hearing voices, and all of a sudden, and I was just so shocked by it. And, she did a reading for me, and I kind of was like skeptical because she was bringing up all the same family members that we know. And she goes, well, my teacher is really good, so I think you might believe it more if you went to my teacher. And I was like, great, fine. So, and the thing is that Laura was getting great hits. Like she was, the stories she was telling me were fantastic, but I just didn't believe it in my mind. I believed she believed it. So the night before I came home, it was a Christmas, and I said to Laura, so what do I need to do to get ready for this medium thing? And she goes, well, take some time tonight and think about people you'd like to see, that you'd like to talk to, people that, and I was like, okay. And she goes, it's called setting your intention. And again, I was just like a bulldog. I was like, yeah, whatever, do it, So I kind of took some time, and I thought about it, and I thought of people who had passed. A good friend of mine who had died of AIDS, wanted to see him. My grandmother, who I was very close to. And, of course, at the top of the list was Sarah, because I always felt like a shit about it. And from that first minute, I was like, Sarah. So I just kind of pretended I was talking to her. And I said, Sarah, come to me tomorrow in this reading so that I can know that you're not mad at me. And, I didn't hear anything, feel anything, see anything. But I was like, okay, I did what I was supposed to. And I show up at this reading, and this woman is really sweet. She's nothing like what I expect physically. She looks like a hockey mom, She just, but she was in this really uber, candles, and can you have some more hanging chiffon and some more, beads, and can it smell more like incense? No. It was like, to me, I was like going, why don't these people act normal? Why can't it be just like a comfortable space? Why does it all have to be so frippy, So I was really cynical when I walked in, and the woman's like, well, let's get started. And within a second, she's like, there's someone here. She's a young girl. It looks like in her early 20s. She has long blonde hair and blue eyes. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, and then the skeptical part of me is thinking, well, blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl from the boy who lives in California, that's not, if she's fishing, she's right. Probably close to God. And she goes, she's wearing a wetsuit. And my heart
wow,
absolutely stopped. I was like, oh my God. And she goes, you wanted her to come right? And I said, yes. And she goes, is there something you have to ask her? And I said, Sarah, are you mad at me? You know, are you mad at me? She's like, why would I be mad at you? And I'm like, for not working for you the night before you died? And she's like, what are you, God? It had nothing to do with you, you know? And I said, well, why? And she said, my family needed to learn something from my death. That was how she explained to me why she had made that transition, that she had come to a place of understanding. And I was like, so you're not mad at me? And she's like, no. And of course, I'm crying. I'm just, and it was this huge release. And then, you know, the woman went on later to talk to my grandmother. I felt her. And interestingly, I will share that about my grandma. She said, and this was something that I've always remembered. She said, I'm always just a thought away, but remember, I have stuff to do too. I can't be with you all the time. So use those thoughts wisely. I mean, that was something that my grandma said. And I realized that she was right, that we sort of are now, energetically, we're tied to people. You know, and even if they pass, it doesn't change the energy connection. So, but for me at that time, I was blown away. That's all I could say about Sarah was, wow. I mean, how would this woman know? There was no conceivable way on earth that this woman could have pulled that out. I never told my sister about it. How would she know? I mean, there was just no, she couldn't have read my mind because I was picturing Sarah when I saw her last, when she's describing her. I wasn't picturing the wetsuit, you know. So for me, that it really, really, really changed it. I was left with, how else could this be true except at face value? You know? Right.
Absolutely. So what this all did for you was kind of open up your own spirituality, and then you've brought it into your day-to-day life through both your vocation in television production and as an energy healer. Do you want to talk a little bit to what that's been like for you?
Yeah, I mean, that did set every emotion because, honestly, it was that sort of connection with my sister that made me realize that that there was something to this. And having seen the transformation in my sister, who went from practical to sending every text and email with "in love and light," I thought of a reality show idea that I thought was a pretty good one. It was about like to see people transform, like a reality show teaching mediumship. You know, and it's not like they'd be voted out of the island at the end if they couldn't communicate. But, you know, we just basically try to work with people and have seances in every show. And I thought it was this awesome idea. We got this school to do it, and it all came from my sister, remembering how amazing that was to see this level-headed, practical woman turn into this. It's okay, it's beautiful, you know. I mean, it was astonishing to see. And Laura is amazing, by the way. I have since, just so that you know, have seen some amazing hits. I mean, all it took for me to understand, to realize just how great she is, and she's awesome. But anyway, so I found this school, Delphi, and me and my partner at the time, Barbara, were told that, yes, we will work with you, we think it's a cool idea, but we don't want you to do the show from the outside in. We need you to do the show from the inside out. So they basically said, can you, we will, you don't have to pay, you just have to get here and pay for your meals, but we need you to come and take our course. And so I was like, heck yeah, sure, why not, right? You know? And it was very strange, honestly, Jenny, I have to say it was very strange because they said, look, there's just one condition. We don't want you to, we feel that your heart is in the right place, and we know that you will get a lot out of this. But we don't want you to tell everybody because we don't want that to change the energy of the class for the other students. So please do not say why you are really here. You know, fib a little, just, you know. And what was really interesting is that, you know, I was able to do that because I could tell honestly about my sister and about my beliefs and Sarah and why I really felt the need to do it. And but what was fascinating was, you know, here I am every night trying to take notes about everything that happened. But bizarrely, in the class that I was in, and it was all grace, by the way, I was like this. I don't want to say star pupil because it sounds obnoxious, but I think that everyone, I mean, I think many of the people who went to the class would be like, I was hitting on things that were crazy, and I was drawing pictures that doing spirit drawings where I drew the nativity scene. I couldn't have drawn that picture. I could not have drawn that picture with my eyes open. And it was just like, and the woman's like, oh my God, yes, I connect with Mary because she lost her only son just like me. And this means I know exactly what this picture means. And she was translating it for me. And I was like, I'm just a vessel going, what the hell? So on the one hand, I'm trying to document it. And on the other hand, I'm just, going through this class and really just, it was all grace. And I had a meditation where I saw the divine. I mean, I literally, inexplicably, unexplainably experienced the divine, just seeing and feeling. And I realized, wow, I'm so out of my league. I mean, you just get changed. So literally, the show never came out of that experience, but I walked out of that place a completely different person. That's kind of.
So isn't it amazing how just one person can be the catalyst for all this grand transformation in our lives, and it comes from a place that you've never even expected before. Do you find like that was the case with Sarah and then this other woman who connected you?
Oh, absolutely. Two strangers, really. I mean, Sarah was, she was everybody's friend, In other words, I just was charmed by her. I mean, the thing is, she had lots of boyfriends, lots of guys ogling her and stuff. So for me, she was just nothing but a sweetie. And like I said, this experience, the guilt that I carried for a long time, and then to have it released, and the gift of believing. I'm a Capricorn, and they say that you really have to hit them over the head with a brick before they finally get it, So it took that to really go, wow. Yeah, and Leanne, too. I've never seen her again. I'll always remember her. She was an amazing medium because she came right out of the gate with it, I mean, somebody said, the critics always say, do you know somebody who... No, she just was like, okay, yeah, I see this the wetsuit, and it was just, yeah. So what a gift! It's a blessing. It's a gift. And those two people, if I met them 5 minutes later, or our paths never crossed, I would not have had the experiences I've had. So grateful.
Absolutely amazing. Well, Paul, we've come to the end of our half hour, and to wrap it up, I want to know. What kind of message do you want to send out to our viewers? What final words do you have to say to them?
God, I don't know. Just I guess because of all the weird experiences I've had, my sister told me once, the white phone is ringing. Mm-hmm. The white phone is ringing, and I think that's true of all of us. The white phone is ringing. You need to answer. Beautiful. So however you can, the white phone is ringing. Answer it, because you will never regret that decision.
Amazing. Well, Paul, thank you so much for coming on Confessions tonight.
I am so happy, Jenny. Sorry about the technical glitches, but our viewers will never see.
Shh, it's our secret.
Did I just confess?
Yeah, bad. You just confessed something you shouldn't have confessed. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, it was such a pleasure to have you on tonight. So for everybody who wants to check out Paul, you can follow him at Twitter at Paul Amirault1. I will put that link in the video below so you can check it out. I'm Jenny Watson. I'm a personal empowerment coach. You can find me at www.jennifer-watson.me. Anything resonate with you tonight, you can reach out to me. I offer private one-on-one confessions coaching. So thank you for tuning in and watching tonight. Join me next week at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Will I be doing another interview? Will I be doing a tantalizing group discussion? Will it be an angry, not cute return? Who knows? Tune in to find out. Namaste and embrace your power.